1925, Paris. A government official contacts 5 of the city's wealthiest scrap metal dealers. Confidential meeting, urgent business, national importance. They arrive at the luxurious Hôtel de Crillon expecting routine government contract negotiations. Instead, they hear something shocking. The Eiffel Tower is being torn down, sold for scrap. The government needs it gone quietly to avoid public outcry. And one of them will get the contract to dismantle the most famous landmark in France. This was completely real, except the government official wasn't from the government. His name was Victor Lustig, and he was about to pull off the most audacious con in history. He sold the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal to a legitimate businessman, then did it again a month later. This is how one man conned Paris twice with the same impossible lie. How do you convince someone to buy a landmark that isn't for sale? Victor Lustig was born in 1890 in what is now the Czech Republic. He spoke 5 languages fluently. He was charming, elegant, sophisticated. He looked like aristocracy, dressed like wealth, spoke like education, and he was a con artist, one of the greatest who ever lived. By 1925, he had spent 15 years running scams across Europe and America, card cheating on ocean liners, fake investment schemes, forged documents. He had been arrested multiple times but always talked his way out or disappeared before trial. He understood something fundamental about human nature that most people miss. People want to believe they're getting special access, secret opportunities, inside deals. If you can make someone feel chosen, feel special, feel like they're the smart one getting an advantage, they'll ignore every warning sign. They'll hand you their money and thank you for the privilege. Spring 1925. Lustig was in Paris reading a French newspaper. He found an article about the Eiffel Tower, the iconic landmark built for the 1889 World's Fair. The article mentioned the tower was expensive to maintain. Rust was spreading, repairs cost a fortune. Some officials questioned whether keeping it was worth the cost. It was just a throwaway observation in a minor article, but Lustig saw something else. He saw opportunity. The greatest opportunity of his criminal career. What if someone believed the government was secretly selling the Eiffel Tower? The Eiffel Tower was universally loved in 1925. When it was built, Parisians hated it, called it an eyesore, a metal monstrosity ruining the Paris skyline. Famous artists and writers signed petitions demanding its removal. It was only supposed to stand for 20 years, but it became useful for radio transmission during World War I, so the government kept it. By 1925, opinions had softened, but it still had critics. Lustig realized something brilliant. If the government really wanted to tear down the Eiffel Tower quietly without massive public protests, how would they do it? They'd keep it secret, make it look like routine government business, present it as already decided, and they'd need to move fast before anyone could organize opposition. Lustig created an entire false identity. He became the Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs, a completely fabricated position. He had government letterhead printed, official-looking documents created, business cards made. He rented an office. He studied how French bureaucrats dressed, spoke, and conducted business. He became the perfect government official, slightly pompous, bureaucratically vague, obsessed with procedure and discretion. Everything about him screamed authentic government authority. How do you choose which businessmen to target? Lustig researched Paris's scrap metal dealers carefully. He needed someone with enough money to afford the Eiffel Tower's scrap value, someone ambitious who would jump at a massive opportunity, someone desperate to make their mark, someone who wouldn't immediately run to authorities if something felt wrong. And he found the perfect victim, André Poisson, a scrap metal dealer who had recently moved to Paris from the provinces. Poisson was wealthy but insecure. He desperately wanted acceptance in Parisian high society, wanted to be taken seriously by established Paris businessmen who looked down on him as a provincial newcomer. He was ambitious, aggressive, and hungry to prove himself with a deal so big it would make his reputation overnight. Lustig sent official letters on government letterhead to 5 scrap metal dealers including Poisson. Confidential invitation, important government contract opportunity, meeting at Hôtel de Crillon, one of Paris's most luxurious hotels. The location was deliberate. Meeting at a luxury hotel rather than a government office building suggested this was sensitive business requiring discretion. The dealers arrived expecting something unusual. They got it. Lustig, dressed immaculately in an expensive suit with government credentials prominently displayed, explained the situation. The ministry had made a difficult decision. The Eiffel Tower was too expensive to maintain. The rust problem was worse than public reports indicated. Repairs would cost millions France couldn't afford. After careful consideration at the highest levels, the government had decided to tear it down and sell it for scrap, but this had to be handled delicately. If word leaked before everything was finalized, there would be public outcry, protests, political embarrassment. The ministry needed to move quickly and quietly. One of them would receive the contract to dismantle the tower and purchase the metal, approximately 7,000 tons of iron, worth millions. But why would any businessman believe this? Here's why it worked: the story was just plausible enough. The Eiffel Tower really did have critics, maintenance really was expensive, the government really might want it gone, and the secrecy made perfect sense. Of course they'd want this done quietly. The luxury hotel meeting reinforced that this was sensitive government business, not routine procurement. Lustig had anticipated every objection. Why meet here instead of a government office? Security and discretion. Why only 5 dealers? The ministry wanted to limit knowledge of the project. Why such urgency? Political timing before opponents could organize resistance. Every detail supported the story. Lustig even arranged for the dealers to tour the Eiffel Tower in a government limousine, showed them the rust, the structural issues, let them calculate the metal tonnage, let them feel the tower's physical reality, made it concrete and measurable rather than abstract. They walked around the base taking notes, discussing logistics of dismantling it, planning how to transport 7,000 tons of iron through Paris. The tour transformed an unbelievable story into practical business planning. It felt real because Lustig made it tangible. Then came the selection process. Lustig interviewed each dealer privately, asked about their finances, their experience with large projects, their ability to keep confidential matters confidential. He was evaluating them, judging their worthiness. This created competition. Each dealer wanted to be chosen, wanted to win this incredible opportunity. And Lustig watched carefully. He saw that Poisson was the most eager, the most desperate, the most likely to ignore doubts because he wanted the deal so badly. So how do you close the deal without them realizing it's a scam? Lustig called Poisson to his hotel suite for a private meeting, told him confidentially that he was the ministry's preferred choice. His bid was strong, his experience was solid, the contract would be his, but then Lustig did something brilliant, something that sealed Poisson's belief completely. He hesitated, he acted uncomfortable, he mentioned that as a government official he didn't make much money. He implied, without stating it directly, that some financial consideration for his personal assistance in expediting the paperwork would be appreciated. He was asking for a bribe. This was the master stroke, the perfect psychological manipulation. If this was a scam, the con artist would be trying to appear completely legitimate and trustworthy. He wouldn't ask for a bribe, he wouldn't risk exposing himself, but a real corrupt government official, he would absolutely ask for a bribe. That's how French bureaucracy worked in 1925. Everyone knew officials took bribes, it was expected. By asking for a bribe, Lustig made himself more believable, not less. Poisson's doubts evaporated. This was real. This was how business got done. Of course, the official wanted something extra. Poisson paid the bribe, a substantial sum. Then he paid the much larger amount for the Eiffel Tower contract itself, a certified check made out to the ministry, actually made out to Lustig's fake government identity. Lustig provided official-looking receipts and contracts, told Poisson the paperwork would be finalized within a few weeks, reminded him that absolute secrecy was essential until the official announcement. Then Lustig left Paris, immediately, took the money and disappeared. What happened when Poisson realized he'd been conned? Days passed, Poisson waited for the official paperwork, waited for permission to begin dismantling the tower, waited for some official contact from the ministry. Nothing came. He called the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. They had never heard of the project, had never heard of the Deputy Director General he'd met with, had no record of any Eiffel Tower sale. Slowly, horribly, Poisson realized the truth. He'd been conned. He'd paid a fortune for something that was never for sale. By someone who didn't work for the government. It was the most humiliating mistake imaginable. But here's the beautiful part of Lustig's plan. Poisson never reported it to police, never went public, never told anyone. Why? Because he was too embarrassed, too humiliated. Admitting he'd fallen for this con would destroy his reputation completely, would make him the laughingstock of Paris, would prove the established businessmen were right to look down on him as a foolish provincial. So he kept quiet, absorbed the loss, pretended it never happened. Lustig had predicted this perfectly. He knew the psychology, knew that pride and shame would keep his victim silent. And then Lustig did something even more audacious. Lustig waited, watched French newspapers from his safe location outside France. No reports of an Eiffel Tower scam, no police investigation, no warnings to businesses, nothing. Poisson had kept silent exactly as predicted, and Lustig realized something incredible. If there were no reports, no warnings, no public awareness, he could do it again. He could sell the Eiffel Tower a second time, to different buyers who would have no reason to suspect anything. 1 month after the first con, Lustig returned to Paris. Used the same system, different fake identity, different government letterhead, but the same basic con. Contacted 6 different scrap metal dealers, different ones than the first time. Confidential meeting about the Eiffel Tower sale. Same story about government decision and need for discretion. Same luxury hotel meeting. Same government limousine tour of the tower. But this time something went wrong. One of the dealers was more suspicious, more skeptical, started asking harder questions, started checking details more carefully. Lustig sensed it, sensed the deal was falling apart, sensed potential danger, so he didn't try to close, didn't push for payment. He just disappeared, left Paris immediately, before the suspicious dealer could contact authorities, before anyone could investigate, before his identity could be confirmed or police could be called. This time there were reports, police were notified, an investigation was opened, but it went nowhere. The suspicious dealer couldn't provide much information, the fake identity led nowhere, the real government denied involvement. Lustig was gone, vanished, no trace, no leads, the investigation died, but Lustig's reputation among con artists became legendary. The man who sold the Eiffel Tower twice and got away with it. But Lustig wasn't done, his next con would be even bigger. After the Eiffel Tower cons, Lustig moved to America. He needed new territory, new victims, new opportunities, and he brought his masterpiece with him, the Romanian box, also called the money printing machine. This was Lustig's signature con, the one he'd perfected over years, the one he'd used to steal from some of the richest and most powerful people in America. The con worked like this. Lustig would approach a wealthy mark with a mysterious device, a wooden box with complex-looking machinery inside, dials, rollers, chemical compartments. It looked sophisticated, scientific, expensive. Lustig would explain that it was a currency counterfeiting machine developed by European scientists. It could duplicate money, place a real $100 bill inside, wait 6 hours for the chemical process to complete. The machine would produce a perfect duplicate. 2 bills where there was one, you could double your money, but it was slow. Only 1 bill every 6 hours, 4 bills per day. That limitation was brilliant psychology. If it produced money instantly, it would seem too good to be true. But slow production, that seemed like a real technological limitation, a believable restriction. Lustig would demonstrate, place a $100 bill in the box. The mark would watch him do it, close the machine, set the timer, they'd wait, have dinner, drinks, conversation. 6 hours later they'd open the box. $200 bills inside, perfect duplicates, identical serial numbers, identical printing. The mark would examine them carefully, take them to banks. The banks would accept them as genuine because they were genuine. Lustig had loaded the machine with real bills beforehand. The demonstration used 1 real bill from the mark and 1 real bill from the machine's hidden compartment. Simple, effective, completely convincing. The mark would be amazed, excited, desperate to buy this machine. Think of the possibilities, unlimited money. Lustig would be reluctant to sell. It was dangerous. Counterfeiting was serious crime. But eventually, after the mark begged and offered enough money, he'd agree. Sell the machine for an enormous sum. $20,000, $50,000, whatever the mark could afford, then give careful instruction. Don't use it too much. 1 or 2 bills per week maximum. Any more would attract attention. The chemicals inside would last for several months before needing replacement. Lustig would provide contact information for ordering more chemicals, then he'd leave. What happened when they tried to use the machine? The mark would go home with their machine, wait the prescribed 6 hours, open it, find another real $100 bill inside. Lustig had loaded multiple bills into the hidden compartment, enough for several more successful uses. This was crucial. The mark would test it repeatedly. Each time it would work, produce money, reinforce belief that the machine was real. For days or even weeks, the machine would keep producing bills. The mark would become convinced. Would start planning how to use their unlimited money, would dream about the fortune they'd make. Then one day the machine would stop working. Open it and find blank paper instead of money, or nothing at all. The mark would panic, call the contact number Lustig had provided. Disconnected or fake, try to find Lustig. Impossible, he was long gone. Gradually the mark would realize they'd been conned, but they couldn't report it. Why? Because they'd been trying to use a counterfeiting machine. They believed they were committing a federal crime. Reporting the con would mean admitting they'd attempted counterfeiting. They'd go to prison, so they stayed silent, just like Poisson with the Eiffel Tower, just like all of Lustig's victims. Shame and complicity kept them quiet. But Lustig's luck was running out. For years, Lustig ran the money box con successfully across America. He stole from businessmen, from gangsters, from wealthy individuals. He made fortune, and he spent them just as fast, lived in expensive hotels, wore custom suits, dated beautiful women, gambled heavily, lost money constantly, made more money, lost that too. He was brilliant at getting money but terrible at keeping it. He needed to keep running cons just to maintain his lifestyle. 1934. Lustig made a fatal mistake. He started actually counterfeiting money, not pretending with a box, actually printing fake bills. This was different from his con. This was real federal crime with real evidence. Worse, he partnered with someone, William Watts, a skilled printer. Together they produced over $100,000 in fake $20 bills. Decent quality, good enough to pass for a while. They started distributing them, spending them in stores, passing them to accomplices, making real money from fake bills. But counterfeiting is different from con artistry. Con victims don't report, don't cooperate with police, don't testify, but counterfeiting leaves physical evidence, bills that can be traced, serial numbers that can be tracked, patterns that can be analyzed, and victims who will report to police because they're not complicit. The Secret Service started investigating, started tracking the fake bills, started building a case, started closing in. And then someone betrayed him. Watts got arrested first, caught with fake bills and printing equipment, faced decades in prison, and he made a deal, testified against Lustig, gave evidence, provided details, betrayed his partner. The Secret Service raided Lustig's apartment, found counterfeiting materials, fake bills, printing plates, everything they needed. Lustig was arrested, charged with counterfeiting. The evidence was overwhelming. The testimony was damning. He was going to prison. But even in custody, Lustig tried one final con. He convinced prison guards that he was sick, needed medical treatment, needed to be transferred to a hospital. They believed him, transferred him, and Lustig escaped, walked out of the hospital, disappeared into New York City. Free again, living under fake identity, still running cons even while a fugitive. The audacity was incredible. He couldn't help himself. He was addicted to the con, addicted to the game. Addicted to proving he was smarter than everyone else. But they caught him. 27 days later, Secret Service found him, arrested him. This time there would be no escape. No con, no trick. The trial was quick. The evidence overwhelming. Watts testified. Other victims finally came forward. Lustig was convicted, sentenced to 20 years at Alcatraz, the most secure prison in America, the place they sent criminals they never wanted to escape. Alcatraz broke him. The isolation, the boredom, the complete lack of marks to con or games to play. Lustig deteriorated, got pneumonia, died in 1947 at age 57. The man who conned everyone died in a concrete cell, unable to charm or trick or manipulate his way out. The great con artist defeated by walls and time and disease. So what's his real legacy? Victor Lustig pulled off approximately 47 cons during his career. We know about those because they were reported or documented. The real number is probably much higher, probably hundreds, because most of his victims never reported, never admitted, never wanted anyone to know they'd been fooled. He stole millions in today's money, from businessmen, from criminals, from anyone with money and ego. He became legendary among con artists. His techniques are still studied, still used, still taught. The Eiffel Tower con became the most famous scam in history, not because it stole the most money. Other cons were bigger, but because of the sheer audacity, the impossible boldness. Who thinks to sell a national landmark? Who has the nerve to try? Who succeeds and then does it again? That audacity is what made Lustig legendary. But here's the real lesson. Lustig succeeded because he understood human nature better than his victims understood themselves. He knew that people want to believe they're special, getting inside information, offered exclusive opportunities, smarter than everyone else. That desire to feel special, to be the insider, to get the advantage, blinds people to obvious fraud. Poisson ignored every warning sign because he wanted the deal to be real, wanted to be the man who bought the Eiffel Tower. Wanted the reputation and status that would bring. His own ambition made him vulnerable. The same psychology works today. Modern scams use the same techniques Lustig perfected, make the mark feel special, offer exclusive opportunity. Create urgency and secrecy, make them complicit so they won't report. Whether it's cryptocurrency schemes, investment fraud, romance scams, or fake business opportunities, the psychology hasn't changed. People still want to believe they're getting special access, still ignore red flags when they want something badly enough. Victor Lustig proved that you don't need sophisticated technology to steal millions. You need understanding of human psychology, need confidence, need audacity, and need victims whose own desires make them blind to reality. He sold the Eiffel Tower because people wanted to believe they could buy it. He sold money machines because people wanted to believe in easy wealth. He succeeded because people wanted to be conned if the reward was big enough. That's the uncomfortable truth about con artists. They don't force anyone, they offer opportunities, and victims choose to believe, choose to ignore doubts, choose to hand over money. The con artist just provides what the victim already wants, makes the fantasy seem real, makes the impossible seem possible, makes the too good to be true seem legitimate. This is cinematic history tales where the greatest cons get exposed, where we learn how fraud works, where we understand why smart people fall for impossible lies. Subscribe because Victor Lustig's techniques are still being used today. Same psychology, same manipulation, same victims believing they're too smart to be conned, just like Poisson, just like everyone Lustig fooled, just like everyone who thinks they would never fall for something so obvious, until they do.